The government shoots down another object out of the sky. This time they did it quickly without any hesitation. They did it over Alaska like they should have done the first time. But we're going to go through this because we don't even know what this thing is. They are calling it an object, and they're having a difficult time explaining this. We're going to go through two press briefings today. One from John Kirby, the White House National Security Council. He's a spokesman for them. And Patrick Ryder over from the DOD, the Department of Defense, and the Pentagon are going to unveil for us what happened. What did they shoot down? A second balloon? Well, they didn't really want to use the word balloon. They said balloon a bunch, but they kind of didn't mean to say it. Everybody's got balloon on the brain, as they say. And so is it an object? Is it a drone? Is it a missile? Is it some sort of secretive orb? Is it new technology? Is it the Tic Tac? Is it the... What is it? Well, we're going to have to figure it out. But John Kirby was in the middle of a press briefing when this news basically broke. And it all started with one question from a journalist: rumors of a balloon. Now, this was interesting because John Kirby was out there in front of the press answering a bunch of questions about, other stuff. The president's going to Poland, all sorts of, other issues are percolating around the world. And so John Kirby just kind of randomly gets asked about these rumors.
Thank you, Corinne. Hi, John. I have more follow-ups on the Lula visit as well as the assistance U.S. providing to Turkey. But really briefly, can you speak to rumors that there is another Chinese balloon above Alaska or any other parts of U.S. territory that the U.S. shot down?
So I can confirm that the Department of Defense was tracking a high-altitude object over Alaska airspace in the last 24 hours.
Wow.
The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet.
Okay, a little lower.
And posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. Out of an abundance of caution and at the recommendation of the Pentagon, President Biden ordered the military to down the object. And they did. And it came inside our territorial waters. Those waters right now are frozen, but inside territorial airspace and over territorial waters. Fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command took down the object within the last hour.
Wow, right, like within the last hour. And they had just a little paragraph for Kirby to read, and he had to pull out his glasses and read through it. That's all we got for you.
Can I just follow up?
And so she asks another question. She's like, okay, well, I guess thanks for confirming the rumor. But it goes over to the next journo in the room. We get to the next question, and she goes, wait a minute, what? Wait a minute, I had a whole list of questions here for you. I was going to ask about Poland and about Lula and all this stuff. But wait, what? You shot another balloon out of the sky?
When I hear news, I just get very excited.
Fancy that.
Yes. So can we just go back for a moment? So another aircraft of some sort, airship, balloon, something was shot down today. Who owns it? What were the circumstances?
Give us the
Was the
juicy
president
deets.
directly involved in ordering this? And is wreckage being recovered?
All of it.
Well, okay, so I'm going to try. Remind me if I forget something.
Okay.
Yes, the president absolutely was involved in this decision. He ordered it at the recommendation of Pentagon leaders. He wanted it taken down, and they did that. They did it using fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command. The Pentagon will have more to say about the details of this later on this afternoon. It's
We'll get
only
to
just
it.
within the last hour. We're calling this an object because that's the best description we have right now.
It's unidentified.
We do not know who
And it was
owns
flying.
Whether it's a
And it was an
whether
object.
it's state-owned or corporate-owned or privately owned. We just don't know.
You don't know if it was privately owned?
We don't know. As I said, state-owned. We don't know if it's state-owned.
State-owned.
And we don't understand the full purpose. We don't have any information that would confirm a stated purpose for this object. We do expect to be able to recover the debris since it fell not only within our territorial space, but on what we believe is frozen.
The heck did they
water.
shoot
So,
out?
A recovery effort will be made.
Don't know where it came from, company or
we're hopeful
nation
that
state.
it'll
Don't know
be
what it's
successful,
for.
And then we can learn a little bit more about it.
He shot it out of the sky.
Appearance like the Chinese aircraft?
No, it was much smaller than the spy balloon that we took down last Saturday. The way it was described to me was roughly the size of a small car, as opposed to
An airplane.
a payload that was like 2 or 3 buses size, right? So
Okay,
much smaller.
A car is flying around in the sky.
And not of the same, not no significant payload, if you will.
All right, so it's just flying around. It is from an unknown source. The payload, don't really know what it's carrying as well.
Is likely the president will choose to shoot it
The
down.
president will always act in the best interest of our national security and in the safety and security of the American people.
Jackie, we're going to get you guys. John, so the Pentagon ordered this new object be taken down over Alaska.
The president ordered it.
The president ordered it. So is it a fair takeaway then that the Pentagon regrets not taking down the first balloon before it crossed the entire U.S.?
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to speak for the Pentagon. I can tell you that the president doesn't regret the way that
I'm sure he doesn't, yeah.
handled the first balloon. That time first of all,
Yeah, right. They're over there at the Pentagon. Their little computer goes beep, beep, beep. And they go, oh, crap, it's a balloon. Launch everything. Fire it. No, it's just a seagull. I don't care. Fire it.
apples and oranges here in terms of size. As I said, this was the size of a small car, and it was over a very sparsely populated area, but also more critically it was over water space when we ordered this down, as we did the last one, but a completely different size. The debris field for this we expect to be much smaller than would have been for the other one. That's difference one. Difference two, we knew for a fact that the PRC balloon that we shot down last week was in fact a surveillance asset and capable of surveillance over sensitive military sites, and that it had self-propulsion and maneuver capabilities. There's no indication that this one did. The other one, the first one, was able to maneuver and loiter, slow down, speed up. It was very purposeful, that flight path inside the jet stream.
So it sounds like that was a bigger threat than this one. So why'd they let that one go through when it was bigger and it had a more purposeful flight path?
That would suggest that maybe you should send it out over Alaska too, though.
Look, the Pentagon's already spoken to this question about whether or not they should have or could have shot it down over Alaska airspace. So I would refer you to, there was 2 hours and hours of testimony yesterday on that.
On the communications, though, we still don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, we don't know what intelligence or communications could have been collected or what devices they were targeting, as I understand it. So that being said, how can the president say it was not a major breach if we don't know that?
What we do know is we knew the basic flight path of this thing, and we were able to take steps at sensitive military sites that we believed would be along the flight path to significantly curtail any intelligence ability that the Chinese could get from the balloon. Certainly curtail anything that would be above and beyond what they normally try to collect through other means.
Satellites and stuff.
Thanks, John. Was this latest object that was shot down within the last hour, was that detected based upon any information gleaned from the monitoring of the last balloon over last week, in terms of what you learned about that Chinese program that informed the decision to shoot this item down?
I think I'd be careful saying that anything specific to what we've learned from that last platform. And we were able to collect some information from it while it was in flight. That was another reason why over land the way it did. But I would not say that information gleaned from our surveillance of that surveillance balloon provided insights that permitted this detection and track.
And as of this moment, are you convinced that you shot down? Do you know what you shot down? That it wasn't just a harmless weather balloon? That there was some motivation flying this over U.S. airspace, or is it truly?
I think we're going to try to.
Some kid's science project. Little Johnny is just wondering what's going on. Or it's one of those kids with the GoPro. The GoPro's up there floating around. He's like, man, at my YouTube, yeah, this is going to be great. What is that?
I can tell you it was an object. It was at 40,000 feet, and the predominant.
Or was it manned?
Concern by the president was a safety of flight issue at that altitude. Remember the one that we shot down last Saturday? It was at 65 plus thousand.
Yeah, but it also dropped back down into the 40s, and it dropped back up again, right? It wasn't just something. They're finding additional reasons to justify what they've already done.
Feet. So no threat to civilian aircraft. This one at 40,000 feet could have posed a threat to civilian aircraft, and it did not appear to have the maneuverable capability that the other one did. So, virtually at the whim of the wind.
Thank you, Crane. So just thank you, Kirby. So to follow up on what you just said about civilian air.
Yeah, following up on that aircraft. Yeah, in the chat, MJ Cleveland says probably a YouTuber prank balloon. Yeah, exactly right. Elon's car. Somebody said it's Elon's car coming back down to land. Exactly right. Elon launched his vehicle up there. That's all it is. Poor military doesn't know what's coming down the pike again. All right, so we also have another question that comes in about the threat. All right, well, you blew this one out of the sky, lickety split. What's the difference? Why were you so quick to act on this one and so slow when the first balloon came moseying on through?
Crane, so just thank you, Kirby. So to follow up on what you just said about civilian aircraft, is that what you meant initially when you said there was a reasonable threat to shoot it down?
Yes, my exact words were reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight.
Okay, and given what you said earlier about intent with regard to the Chinese spy balloon, does the U.S. give any credence to the Chinese argument that the balloon accidentally veered off course and ended up where it did?
You're talking about the one
the
from last
Chinese.
week?
Do you believe the Chinese at all?
Say that again. Was it?
Does the U.S. give any credence to the Chinese argument that this thing accidentally veered off course and ended up where it did?
No.
So
No.
Was it targeting specific
Yes.
places? Was it targeting military sites?
What we know is that the flight path it executed took it over sensitive military sites.
And they allowed
What
it.
we also know is that it could maneuver, that it had
Just moving all over.
propulsion capability and steerage capability.
Let's go to this nuclear site,
and
that
could slow
nuclear
down,
site.
speed up, and that it was on a path to transit over sensitive military sites.
Why did they let that one go through?
Thank you.
Nuts. All right, so they said, okay, well, if that one was flying all over the place, like somebody was exercising an RC controller, what about this one? A new question from this journo asks about maneuverability.
On the latest object, you said it did not appear to have the maneuverability capabilities that the Chinese spy balloon have. Did it have any maneuverability, or was it flying on its own?
At this time, all I can tell you is it did not appear to have the ability to independently maneuver. We'll attempt recovery, and we'll see what we can learn more from.
And then just one more on the Chinese spy balloon. We're reporting that the U.S. is about to impose export controls on Chinese companies that are believed to have been involved in that balloon surveillance program. Can you confirm that and say when the administration might impose those export controls?
I'm not in a position to confirm those reports right now, and I'd refer you to the Department of Treasury.
Thank you, Admiral. I believe you said.
All right, so any maneuverability, we don't know. It's a lot of unknowns. We'll learn more from the Pentagon here in a minute. But a big question, of course, is who owns this thing? As we talked about at the start of the show, if there is two military aircraft from the same country, that sort of establishes a pattern, does it not? Right? One of them is a mistake. Now, they say it's a mistake. We know it's not a mistake, but all right. At least they've got some plausible deniability there. They can fake it. They can pretend like that matters to them. Okay. If they do it again, that kind of takes it off the table, right? Don't let it happen twice. And it looks like this was another object. Now, you can imagine the White House is in a little bit of a precarious position here. I'm sure that they do not want to come out here and have a twofer on this thing, because then they have to respond pretty aggressively, don't they? I mean, if the Chinese are sending literal objects of threat, like threatening objects into the United States airspace twice, what's the U.S. going to do about that? Maybe that's the point. Maybe they say they don't really have a good policy on how they're going to respond, and so they're just jabbing. Who knows? But it's got to come down to ownership. What if it's not a Chinese balloon? What if it's that kid's science project, man? 8-year-old little Timmy. Him and his dad are like, yeah, you're going to win the science fair. They're watching it on their phone like, wow, it's over Alaska right now. This is great. Nice job, little Timmy. What's that in the background? Well, what's that sound? The whole thing's blown out of smithereens, and poor little Timmy's going to get an F. You know, it's going to be a terrible thing. So hopefully they can figure out who owns this.
Admiral, I believe you said this was shot down, or at least it landed in the waters or the frozen waters off the coast of Alaska, correct?
That is our initial assessment.
So is the policy still, considering the first one was shot down off the East Coast and this high-altitude object was shot down off the West Coast, is the policy at this point in time you could shoot it down if it's over a body of water?
I wouldn't derive from these two incidents some sort of policy that comes out of it. The president will always act in the best interest of the American people and international security. Last week, we were talking about a surveillance asset.
What is
that
this?
Was purposely flown over the continental United States. In the case today, we're talking about an object. Again, we don't know a lot about it, but that at its altitude represented a potential threat to the safety of flying customers, civil air traffic.
Based on your broad and deep experience, who do you think might own or have flown
Capabilities,
this thing in the
yeah.
air?
Who can build that? Who can put a car up into the sky? Right? Like they were joking. He said it might be a corporate entity or something. Like maybe Uber has little pellets flying around now or something. Right? These are typically nation state operations. Same arguments we were making when the Nord Stream 2 got taken out, evidently by Biden. There's only so many people who have the capability of doing something like this. And so when you narrow it down to the entities that are capable, it's kind of a small handful of groups.
Good, Mary. You know you don't know who owns it, who's flown it, but has anyone from the administration reached out to the Chinese to see whether they will claim this new object?
Did you guys send a
No
second one?
outreach
Are you
this
serious?
afternoon to the Chinese government about this.
The State Department over the weekend, or last few days, I'm losing track of days, but since the first spy balloon, confirmed that they think that these Chinese spy balloons have gone over 40 countries. Considering that fact and this new development today, what's next on a larger diplomatic
What's
front
the
for
whole
US?
world going to do
Talking with allies
about these Chinese
how to police the
balloons?
skies, about how to bring this to the UN to figure out what to do?
We are talking to dozens of nations who we know have been overflown by Chinese surveillance balloons.
Wow.
Part of this program that the Chinese have invested in. To share with them the context and information that we've learned by the forensics we've done since we came in office about this particular program. And I would remind you that we briefed Congress in a classified setting back in August about this. This is not something we haven't been trying to learn more about. We've been aware of it and trying to glean more information from it. And
you let them fly one through the whole country? This is like a top priority for the DOD. They're looking into this. What is this program? 40 different countries are investigating all of this. And they thought, well, yeah, we might as well get a good look at one. Just let it fly right across Kansas.
We expect that the recovery of the debris from the balloon we shot down on last Saturday, will help us gain even more information. But we are in the active conversations with many of these countries who we know have been overflown.
Gotcha.
All right, so that's another one. Who owns it? Still have no idea. And there was another interesting question about even the first balloon, which was about whether President Xi from China even knows about this. You know, they're saying that his government might be in such disarray that people may not want to tell him certain things, and he's sort of isolated, and he might be finding out about it after the fact. How they got wind of that, I don't know, but it's an interesting question.
Follow up on the Chinese spy balloon. This idea that President Xi Jinping may not have been aware of the order to send this balloon over U.S. soil, what would that tell you if that were true about his grip on his own government? Is it possible that it suggests a kind of power breakdown? Is it surprising to the U.S.?
We certainly can't confirm these reports about President Xi's personal knowledge of that, and I would refer you to the PRC to speak to their own leadership issues and information sharing. What matters to us is that this was a violation of our sovereign airspace, and clearly with intent. Now, whose intent? I don't think we have a perfect picture of that right now. Clearly, without
China.
question, the intent of the PRC. because we know that this balloon belonged to them.
It's a
and
big
President
operation.
Biden acted decisively in support of our national sovereignty.
What our reporting is that U.S. officials briefing lawmakers this week told lawmakers that this is the U.S. intelligence community's
I'm not going to
assessment,
speak to
right?
intelligence assessments from the podium.
All right, so yeah, another
Follow up on the
kind of
Chinese spy balloon.
ownership question.
This idea that President Xi Jinping.
We're going to do a refresh because I closed out of that audio too fast, as typical. And so the question about ownership is still up in the air about the second balloon. Even the first or the second object, the first balloon, is still being debated, I suppose. That, we don't even know if President Xi knows about it in China. But that is from John Kirby, White House National Security Council. And we learn that it all happened about basically in real time. He had very little information. Some of that might be by design. Now we turn our attention over to the Pentagon. This is DoD spokesperson Patrick Ryder. He gave us another statement on this, and we're going to learn more from him. The media in this room is a little bit more, I would say, sophisticated in terms of asking military-based questions. And so we get some more details on this with a little bit more, pointed, topical inquiries. But before we get into it, let's say hello to our friends over at Brickhouse Nutrition, where you can get your field of greens so that you're healthy and vibrant in case we're invaded. Of course, we would also like to lose those leftover pandemic pounds or those holiday pounds. How sick are you, by the way, of all of those weight loss ads for pills and fad diets? We've all been there. We've all done that. And we know that they don't work. But you know what does? Eating 5 healthy servings of fruits and vegetables every day. You do that, and I imagine the weight would probably just fall right off. But look, vegetables, not a fan, and fruit, who's got time to prepare all of that every single day? Solution, Field of Greens. Field of Greens is a science-backed formula, very specific fruits and vegetables that you're not going to find in any other product. Proper nutrition reboots your metabolism. You burn calories faster, lose weight the healthier way. And Field of Greens is the only brand that's backed by a better health promise. Yes, you're going to look and feel healthier, but the greater proof is going to come at the next checkup when your doctor says, my goodness, you've lost weight. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. All right, so let's get you started. 15% off your first order. All you have to do is go to fieldofgreens.com, use code Robert to save that 15%. Don't forget the code, and you'll be feeling vibrant and bursting with green superfood that's real and organic in no time, and you're going to feel all the better for it. And so those are my friends at fieldofgreens.com. Now, over at the Pentagon, we turn our attention to Patrick Ryder, and he came right out of the gate and he said, all right, we've got an update. There was another object that was blown out of the sky. We don't know where this one came from. Here's what he said.
So first of all, to add to information already provided
by
earlier
John
by the White House, at the direction of the President of the United States, fighter aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water. On February 9, North American Aerospace Defense Command detected an object on ground radar and further investigated and identified the object using fighter aircraft. The object was flying at an altitude of 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight.
That's the distinction. The other one didn't pose a threat to the safety of civilian flight. This one did. Now, I sort of recall reading that other balloon was also changing altitude, going down, going up, going down, going up. It was as high as 60,000, above that even, and then it went down into lower airspace. I think part of that was even when they were shooting it down. So it's an interesting question. I'm always looking for the distinctions. Why do they handle one thing one way, but something that feels like it's exactly the same a little bit differently? And one reason could be, well, they got a lot of backlash on how they handled the first balloon. Didn't go so well, and so now they are a little bit trigger happy. They're sort of waiting there with their fingers ready to go, just hit that button as soon as a potential balloon goes up there. They better be very careful about, birthday parties there in Alaska. Group of kids let some balloons up into the sky. You never know. You might have some F-22s dispatched.
U.S. Northern Command is beginning recovery operations now. U.S. Northern Command's Alaska Command coordinated the operation with assistance from the Alaska Air National Guard, Federal Aviation Administration, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. We have no further details about the object at this time, including any description of its capabilities, purpose, or origin. The object was about the size of a small car, so not similar in size or shape to the high-altitude surveillance balloon that was taken down off the coast of South Carolina on February 4. Separately, U.S. Northern Command continues their recovery operations in support of the recent takedown of the Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. Recovery teams have mapped the debris field and are in the process of searching for and identifying debris on the ocean floor. Debris that's been recovered so far is being loaded onto vessels, taken ashore, cataloged, and then moved onwards to labs for subsequent analysis. And while I won't go into specifics due to classification reasons, I can say that we have located a significant amount of debris so far that will prove helpful to our further understanding of this balloon and its surveillance capabilities. Of note, due to less than favorable sea states right now, teams will continue to conduct underwater survey and recovery as conditions permit.
You're kidding me. The ocean is a difficult place to retrieve debris. Oh, that sucks, man. It would have been interesting if they would have blown it up over land, you know. Maybe they could have gotten it. Or if they would have blown it up over the Arctic ice like they did this one, they could have gotten it over the Arctic ice, which is what they're working on now.
The department wants to thank our interagency partners from the U.S. Coast Guard, the FBI, and state and local authorities for their continuing assistance and partnership.
The first balloon landed in the bottom of the ocean outside of South Carolina. The second object is landed, I believe, on Arctic ice up outside of Alaska. And so they're going to be attempting to recover both of those. What that recovery looks like is yet to be seen. But of course, the military press had questions about where it came from as well. What does it look like? Why don't you tell us what it looks like? Why just shoot it down? Does it have additional capabilities that the first one didn't have? And were you pressured by all of the hearings that we covered yesterday on the show from Capitol Hill to take action on this one when you didn't on the first one? So we'll start here. Of course, the big pointed question that the Pentagon gets asked is, who owns this? What is the source? Where did this thing come from?
Hi, thank you for doing this. A couple of questions on this latest shoot down. First, what type of U.S. fighter aircraft were used, and what type of munition did they fire? And do you already have Navy assets or Coast Guard assets involved in a recovery process? And then I have a few more.
Thanks, Tara. So the aircraft that took down the object was an F-22.
Nice.
Flying out of Joint Base Elmendorf in Alaska.
All right.
It employed an AIM-9X to take down the object. In terms of...
Quick pause on that. Shout out to our locals community and our friend Annie Fragile over there. Here is Elmendorf base, since he gave us a little bit of an update on that. You see right here, Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson is located in this area. And so it's actually nearby Anchorage. Erickson's over here near the top, sort of the peninsula out there. And so it's kind of right there. That's where the fighters launched from. Shout out to Annie Fragile.
Assets that are currently involved in terms of recovery, we have HC-130, HH-60, and CH-47 aircraft participating in that recovery effort.
Okay. You mentioned there was a reasonable threat. Was there also a threat to potentially this object detecting some of our more sensitive radar capabilities that are based in Alaska? And then what hasn't been said is where this object has come from. Is there any indication that this was also a Chinese surveillance
Give us a hint, man.
Yeah, so at this point, we don't know the origin of the object. Again, we will know more once we're able to potentially recover some of those materials. But the primary concern, again, was the potential hazard to civil flight. And so, again, we'll know more later. Thank you.
No perceived threat to any of the radar installations that we have based in Alaska?
Again, right now, we'll know more once we assess it. We'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Leave it at that from Patrick Ryder. So not a lot of information about where it came from. The shape of the object is another interesting question, which evidently I didn't attach that one.
First, do you and Admiral Kirby know the shape of this new object? And if so, what is sort of the reason for why you can't share its shape before it was shot down? And then separately, how is the recovery efforts of this new object downed over ice different from the one downed over the coast and water? And are you guys using unmanned systems for this new object as well?
Excellent question.
Yeah, thank you. So in terms of the shape, I don't know. I have not seen any imagery of it. I'm just telling you the verbal characteristics as it was described to me.
Well, what did they say when they described it to you there, Pat? Did they describe it as an object? They just said it was an object floating around in the sky? It's not very nice of them. I mean, you're the spokesman, man. You're supposed to know that stuff. Now, I don't think I clipped it, but they actually said that they flew up the F-22s. They flew them around this thing before they shot it down so that they could tell that there wasn't a person in it, is what we heard. Now, I don't think I clipped that. But he said, no, we knew that it wasn't manned because we flew around it, and then we shot it down. So they saw it. I mean, the plane saw it. They didn't just fire a missile out of nowhere. They saw it. They monitor it. They tracked it. They probably gave it warnings. They probably gave it visual warnings. They probably gave it all sorts of, radio one. Then you're done, right? Bye. Which is what they should have done the first time. But here, they don't want to tell us what the shape is. They don't want to tell us what it looks like. He knows what it looks like. They know what it looks. Is it a square? Is it a plane? Is it a balloon? Is it a triangle? Does it have 3 sides? 1, 2, 3? What is it? They know.
In terms of the difference in the recovery effort, I mean, again, so this literally was, an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. So that's underway right now.
All right, well, tell them to text you a picture. Tell the pilots up there to just take their cell phone and just take a picture of it and just text it over to us so we can all see what it is, for crying out loud. All right. So yeah, apparently our multi-million-dollar, $80 million, $200 million aircrafts, whatever they are, don't have cameras on them. So, all right. So they don't know what the shape is over there at the Pentagon. Now the press is wondering, why can't you just tell us what the shape it is? What's the problem here? And they're frustrated. They also wonder, why did you shoot this one down so quickly? You didn't even hesitate on this one. In fact, we didn't even catch wind. We didn't even get a chance for some guy in Montana to take a picture of this thing. You guys already blew it out of the sky.
Thank you. Thanks for taking my question. What made this threatening enough to shoot down? What is different about this object than the last object that was over Alaska? Because it was chosen not to shoot the last one down over Alaska.
Well, the answer, madam, is we got caught after the first balloon went through, and we know how pissed everybody is at us. And so we don't want to do that again because we got lectured in Congress from all of the Congress people in Montana and Alaska and everywhere else. And we're tired of that. So we decided we were going to take this one out. Thank you.
Yeah. So, the important thing to understand here is anytime we detect anything, we're going to, first of all, observe it and then make a decision and take appropriate action. So you have to look at each individual case on its own merits. In this particular case, given the fact that it was operating at an altitude that posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic, the determination was made and the president gave the order to take it down.
Was there a specific threat, a specific civilian air traffic incident that could have happened?
Again, as you well know, civilian aircraft operate, at a variety of ranges up to 40 to 45,000 feet. So again, there was a reasonable concern that this could present a threat to, or a potential hazard to, civilian air traffic. So let me.
Just one more question.
Yep.
Has Secretary Austin reached out to his Chinese counterpart or any other counterparts at all since this has been tracked?
Since this particular object, no. Let me go here and then I'll come over.
All right. So not much distinction there other than the altitude. One was higher than the other, and that's why they shot it down. One was potentially in the way of commercial aircraft. The other was not. So one had to go. The other was allowed to meander around the country. Of course, we get another question about the capabilities and whether this balloon had different technology than the first balloon, or this object had different technology than the first object, and also what to do about those other balloons that are popping up elsewhere around the globe.
Has been recovered. What additional information you have now about the capabilities of that balloon?
Yeah, so we're continuing to assess that. Again, I'm not able to go into more detail other than, in addition to learning a lot about the balloon and the capabilities that it has while it was over the continental United States, we have identified or located a significant amount of debris on the ocean floor that will be very beneficial to us learning more about it. But at this point in time, I'm not going to have more details.
Manufacturing label on these equipments or the balloons indicate that they're all manufactured in China, sourced from China.
Again, I'm not going to have details to provide it at
Did
this
they
point in
stamp
time.
made in China on that one?
39 other countries have indicated they have seen balloons in their territories. Are you sharing those information from the Pentagon to these countries, or the capabilities, how you shot them down?
So in terms of what we're learning about these balloons, I know the State Department has talked to this in terms of our international outreach. Certainly, the Department of Defense plays a role in those relationships, and so we will continue to work with our allies and partners to share information along with our State Department colleagues. Let me go to Oren.
All right, and so that is about other balloons, and we also heard from Kirby previously. They're still trying to figure out what to do about this. Evidently, they've been investigating it, studying it for a long time. They just didn't tell us about it. So our last question from Patrick Ryder, and I think one that is probably the most on point, is, Sir, it feels like you guys were very quick to react this time because you're embarrassed by how you handled the first incident. Is that true?
Two questions. First, did this object show any signs of maneuverability or propulsion? And then you and other Pentagon officials made a big deal about how much intelligence was gathered by letting the other one float across much of the United States, and yet you shot this one down before it entered the United States.
Yeah, great question. Remember, they were saying how useful this was. They said, they're not spying on us, America. Don't worry about this balloon, okay? Don't worry about our nuclear or anything. We're spying on them. Secretary Lloyd Austin was like, I got a telescope, America. Don't worry, sleep soundly. I'm in charge here. Face mask, face shield. So, it's an interesting dynamic that in certain instances, it's very useful to allow a balloon to fly over America for about a week. In other instances, it is not useful and we just blow it right out of the sky. What's the difference between the two?
Is that the Pentagon bowing to political pressure? Was there nothing to gain from this one?
Yeah, so again, we're going to judge each of these on its merits. No indication at this time that it was maneuverable, but again, we'll know more. And in terms of entering the United States, it did enter U.S. airspace, and we took it down.
Did you gain intelligence from this one as you did from the previous one?
We're going to recover what we can from this, and more to follow.
And was the decision to shoot it down before it entered too far into the U.S. airspace, the Pentagon bowing to political pressure from the Hill?
Look, again, we're going to judge each of these objects on its own merits. It entered into U.S. airspace on February 9th. We sent up aircraft to assess what it was. The decision was made that it posed a reasonable threat to civilian air traffic. The president gave the order to take it down, and we took it down. Thank you.
They did not want incident number 2 at all to happen. And so this one they didn't even hesitate on. They got a lot of egg on their face. They didn't want it to happen again. So object number 2 was taken out, and rightfully so, right? That's the standard. That's how it should be. If anything comes across, that's it. Warning, sorry, you're done. Should have happened on the first incident as well, but of course, they're learning. They're a little slow over there at the White House, national security, and all that interesting stuff. So of course, we will continue to cover. Very likely will be 3 and 4, maybe 5 before the White House figures it out. We'll continue to cover. Thank you for liking this video. Thank you for subscribing. And thank you for sharing the show with a friend and inviting them to come over here and join us. We look forward to seeing you on the next one.